Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a really heavy strategic vulnerability assessment. It's painting a picture of the United States as critically fragile. This is as of December 2025.
And it uses these two, well, frankly, terrifying terms to describe the situation: coercive instability and systemic entropy.
Okay, so let's break those down. What do they actually mean?
Coercive instability is basically the idea that the system is only being held together by force. It's a reaction to massive domestic dissent, like this 7 million people in the No Kings movement back in October.
And systemic entropy.
That's just critical decay. The constitutional machinery itself is just breaking down.
So here's the core paradox the analysts found. The executive branch is apparently pushing toward an external conflict, specifically with Venezuela, to try and generate a rally around the flag effect.
Yeah.
A distraction.
But that's the gamble. The assessment gives that action an 85% probability of triggering the very thing it's supposed to prevent: a full-on internal collapse. They call it the financial break.
An 85% chance. That is a shocking number. It just speaks to how brittle the system is.
It does. They point to an economic instability score that's deep in the severe category and a constitutional unraveling index at critical decay. The system just can't take a shock like that.
All right, let's unpack that economic side first.
Yep.
The report calls the economy a glass cannon. What does that mean?
It means it looks powerful from the outside, but it's structurally weak. The biggest problem is something they call the data fog.
The data fog.
Right. Think about it. That 43-day federal shutdown, it completely severed the country's economic nervous system. The October jobs report, for instance, just gone.
So the markets are flying blind.
Exactly. And if you can't accurately price risk, any global shock like a war gets magnified exponentially.
And you're layering this war onto an already massive, $1.78 trillion deficit for FY 2025. The plan to use tariffs to offset that, it doesn't work.
It creates what the report calls a fiscal mirage. It just crushes consumer spending, which means inflation stays sticky around 3.0%, and for most people, real wages are still going down.
Okay, so that's the economy. What about the constitutional side? The critical decay?
That comes from something the analysts label the appellate void. And you need to understand, this isn't just bureaucracy being slow.
It's more than that.
Oh, yeah. This is executive agencies like DHS reportedly just ignoring federal court orders they don't like. They're effectively bypassing the entire system of checks and balances.
The sources take that idea even further. They say the executive is acting like a bankrupt company's CEO, a debtor in possession.
Yes. Like they're just trying to liquidate the government's assets before it all goes under, and that liquidation is happening through things like Schedule F.
The plan targeting up to 500,000 civil servants.
Right. You're talking about an irreversible loss of institutional memory and expertise.
So, with the domestic house of cards ready to fall, how does this pivot to Venezuela actually play out, according to the assessment?
It's projected to fail, mainly because the U.S. is strategically isolated. Key neighbors, Colombia under President Petro, Brazil, Mexico, they've all denounced the action. They've cut security ties.
So no allies in the region?
None. They've declared Latin America a zone of peace, which guarantees the U.S. is operating completely alone, and that's before you even get to the fight itself.
Which is expected to be difficult.
Extremely. Venezuela has Russian-backed air defense systems, and their irregular forces, the colectivos, have been trained by Russian PMCs. This is not a quick, clean operation.
And a long, drawn-out invasion guarantees what exactly?
It guarantees the trigger for that internal collapse we talked about. A stagflationary supply shock. You lose access to essential sour crude oil. You risk global fertilizer supply chains.
And that shock, on top of the massive debt,
causes the bond vigilantes, the big investors, to finally walk away. They reject U.S. debt, yields spike, and you get the financial break.
Which leads to the final stage. The rupture.
That's it. That's when states essentially partition themselves into functional zones of control. State governments just decide the federal government is insolvent and try to shield their own local economies. The fragmentation becomes real.
So the key takeaway for you is this. The sources are clear that the system is so brittle, a war started to create unity is actually projected to cause internal fragmentation. The rally thesis is dead on arrival.
And the only way out, according to this analysis, is immediate de-escalation in the Caribbean. But even more critically, it's about restoring constitutional integrity at home. You have to end the appellate void, reverse that institutional liquidation. It's the only way to divert what they see as an active collapse vector.